Hey everybody, welcome back to the William Jeans Library's Hot Cakes and Hot Reads for July 11th. Um, I think I just went live, so let me start that again, everybody. Welcome back to Hot Cakes and Hot Reads for the William Jeans Memorial Library. Today is July 11th. Thanks for being patient while you waited an extra week for Hot Cakes and Hot Reads. I forgot last week was July 4th. One of these weeks I'll get the lighting right in here. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm in shadow, but that's that. All right, so today we're going to talk about some good books. We're going to make a pancake recipe, and I want to thank, as always, our William Jeans Library patron John Lewis for the idea for this program. It's been a lot of fun putting these together and doing research for different pancake recipes. So thank you, John. Um, Before we get started on the books and the pancake and all of that, some library news. As we have the past few weeks, we will be continuing our curbside pickup hours. So if you are looking for a book or a DVD or something like that, you can put a hold on those items in your account on our online catalog, which is mclink.polarislibrary.com. Use your barcode number and your password to get access to that. If you need help, give us a call, 610-828-0441, or find more information on our website, jeanslibrary.org. Some things coming up this week and continuing throughout the summer. This week on Wednesday at 3 o'clock and again Thursday at 6:30, we're having a virtual book club. I'll be hosting it on Zoom, and we will be discussing our first title that I'm going to talk about today, Inheritance by Danny Shapiro. It is a memoir. I'll talk more about it in a little bit. But again, that's Wednesday at 3 o'clock, Thursday evening at 6:30. You can find information about this at our calendar of events on our website, jeanslibrary.org/events. For a link to the Zoom chats, you can email me for the password to get on there, and that would be great. Also, a reminder that our summer reading programs for all age groups, little kids, big kids, teens, and adults, is ongoing through August. You can get more information about that at jeanslibrary.beanstack.org. Beanstack like green beans and stack like a stack of books. So jeanslibrary.beanstack.org. Okay, I think those are my announcements. So today we are going to make a German pancake recipe, which, as I did a little research, I always heard of these referred to as German pancakes. Technically, I think that what I'm making is called a Dutch baby pancake, which is actually an American version of some European style pancakes. Sounds like it started somewhere in the early 1900s in Seattle, but it's all over the place. This pancake recipe is different from like a griddle pancake. We're going to be making it in a hot oven with my cast iron skillet. It's eggier, it's maybe a little custardy, and it has a lot in common with like British Yorkshire puddings. Only we're not making it in beef drippings. It's made in butter and it's sweet. So let's get started. I have my ingredients. We'll start off with the ingredients as we always do. One of the things that makes this different than a lot of other pancake recipes is I have 6 eggs here. Like I said, it's a much eggier recipe. I have a cup of all-purpose flour. I have a cup of milk. In this case, I think it's 2% milk, although we usually only have whole milk in our house. That's what happens when my wife sends me to get milk. Ha 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 ha. We have a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons, sorry. 2 tablespoons of sugar and a half teaspoon of salt. And right now, coming out of the oven, I have 5 tablespoons, count them, 5 tablespoons of unsalted butter. You'll notice I have 2 ramekins of melted butter here because the first one I left in the oven for way too long and now it's browned melted butter, which may not affect the recipe, but I thought better safe than sorry. The other thing that I have done already before we got started is I've preheated my oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit because, like I said, it's an oven cake. It's not a griddle cake. All right, so those are the ingredients. I'm going to talk about our first book again. As I mentioned before, it's Inheritance, a memoir of genealogy, paternity, and love by Dani Shapiro. She's a writer, obviously, haha. But after she wrote this, she also went on to start a famous podcast called Family Secrets, and it's in its third season now. It's pretty brilliant listening. But let's talk about the book. So I'm not really a memoir fan. I don't read a lot of memoirs, but there are a few of them that really sort of sink their hooks into me. This is one of them. Much like Educated by Tara Westover, this one has a totally different arc, but the writing is really brilliant, and the story is told in a way that sort of keeps unfolding and unfolding. So the author, I think this is maybe becoming a more and more common story these days, but the author, on a lark, does a DNA test through one of those sites, Ancestry.com or 23andMe. I can't remember which it is in this case, but and then discovers, as so many people do, that her father, the man she knew as her father, is not her biological father. And so this starts her on an arc of exploring family dynamics, thinking back on who her family was, her relationship with her father. She always felt like an outcast in her family. She is Jewish and comes from a Jewish family, but she is blonde hair and blue eyed, and so she, for all of her life, has dealt with that feeling of being different from her family. And so obviously she starts to sort of unravel these secrets. Number one, the book is really a lovely exploration of a woman's remembering of her father. She really felt a true connection with this man, and in the discovery of this, he had passed away before she discovers this, so she now has to grapple with this secret without even being able to talk to him about it. So she goes on a little genealogical detective work. She talks to relatives. She sort of starts snooping on the internet. This book really does a great job of highlighting, number one, how common this is nowadays, because she brings in someone who has helped people hunt out their biological relatives after they discover that they are not biologically related to their family. So she has this person come in. This person has done this for many other people in the past. Common occurrence. And number two, this book also highlights just how much information about us is out there on the internet. Whether we know it or not, we're giving this information away to people, because she very easily just connects dots between this network of people on Ancestry and people on Facebook, and sort of makes connection and locates her biological father, or who she thinks is her biological father. I don't want to give away too much because the book really is a great exploration of these dynamics, but I do want to say also that her writing style is very thoughtful and generous and lovely. I really do wholeheartedly recommend this book to anyone, and the follow-up podcast. She's just a really great speaker, someone who does a lot of deep thinking about what this kind of discovery would mean to a person, what sort of family secrets are now, I guess, being revealed as commonplace when in the past they would have remained secrets. So that is Inheritance, a memoir of genealogy, paternity, and love by Dani Shapiro. Alright, so that's book number one, and at this point we're going to start mixing our ingredients together. I'm actually going to use a blender to mix these ingredients together today, which is different from how we've usually done it. I only have an immersion blender in my house because I don't have room to store a blender, but the blender technique here really helps create a very smooth batter. I'm making a mess. A very smooth batter that will pour very nicely into the pan once we get it there. So I'm going to add all my ingredients to my immersion blender's cup here. So a cup of flour, again, a cup of all-purpose flour, 6 eggs. That's a lot of eggs. I'm almost out of eggs in my house now. A cup of milk. Half a teaspoon of salt. 2 tablespoons of sugar. And hot butter. Let's hope I don't burn myself here. Alright. Now we're good. Alright, so 5 tablespoons of melted butter. Alright, so this is going to be loud for a second, everybody. Bear with me. Again, like I said, this is going to make the batter nice and smooth for the pour. While I do this blending, I'm also going to let my cast iron skillet heat up a little bit in the oven that is preheated to 450 degrees. Alright, so plug this baby in. Get a little blend on. Detach this so I don't make a huge mess. At this point, I'm going to let this settle. A lot of the recipes that I looked at said you can whisk, and you end up with a batter like other pancakes where you get a couple lumps here and there. Not a big deal, but if I can get a smooth pour, great. All right, so that is mixed up. My cast iron is heating up. I'm going to show you the next book. It is Agency by William Gibson. He is a science fiction author, sort of famous for, along with a few other people around the early 80s, coining a subgenre of science fiction called cyberpunk, where they really explored what computers and networks and things like that would do to humans and to society. It's really cool to go back and read those things and see what sort of things people thought were going to happen from computers based on what we had available to us in the 80s and the 90s. Gibson famously said, he went back and looked, and he got a lot of things right, but one of the things he completely missed was the miniaturization of computers and how they would eventually be in our pockets as phones. Anyway, he eventually starts writing more about near future stuff. This book, Agency, is actually sort of set in the same setting as his previous book, The Peripheral, which I really loved. One of the things I love about Gibson and about his books is that he has this really... his style is sort of uniquely his. It's really terse. The sentences are very straightforward, and the information is presented in a way that doesn't dwell a lot. So it's sort of clipped and fast moving, but also still really stylish and really energetic. So I don't know. I love his writing. I love his books. And like I said, this one has the same setting as the last novel, The Peripheral, which feels a little more relevant every day. One of the 2 side-by-side stories in Peripheral and in this one are set in the very near future for us. So 2030s, something like that. Where people are sort of exploring apps and AI and things like that. And then the other storyline is set in a much farther future that can look back and see that much farther future is very directly impacted by this sort of slow-moving apocalypse called the Jackpot that gets explored in the book. It's a combination of a whole bunch of things. Climate change-inspired damage to our planet, massive antibiotic resistance that creates pandemics, gross inequalities in society that cause people to experience lots of homelessness, things like that. This thing is called the Jackpot. Like I said, it starts to feel really more relevant every day. This book is set around new characters from the peripheral. The main character in our near future timeline is Verity Jane. She is an app whisperer, which is a very cool turn of phrase that I wish I had invented. She takes a job beta testing a pair of glasses that are have a very powerful artificial intelligence built into them. She realizes that the people who are asking her to test these things don't actually know how powerful this artificial intelligence is, and she decides maybe it's better if they don't know. Beside this timeline is another timeline much farther in the future, again, where Wilf Netherton is working for a woman whose projects are to look back at alternate timelines in the past and sort of nudge them in certain ways. And it turns out that Verity and this AI are her current pet project. I don't want to give too much away, and in fact, I'm still in the middle of it, so I can't give the whole story away. But if you like science fiction, if you like fast-paced stories, and if you like really thoughtful storytelling that sort of extrapolates on current trends, I would highly suggest Agency by William Gibson. Alright, so we've got my preheated oven, my combined and blended batter. I gotta get my oven mitt, which disappeared. Oh, no, there it is, but I got one back here too. Alright, so we've got this preheated cast iron pan, which I don't get to use enough. I used to use it all the time in my old house where I had a gas range, but now I have a glass stovetop because we don't have natural gas in my neighborhood. Sorry, I'm reaching for butter here because now I'm going to add a tablespoon of butter to the pan, let it melt for a while, and then while that's happening, I'm going to talk about the next book, which is The Age of Football, Soccer and the 21st Century by David Goldblatt. So this book I picked up sort of on a whim. I do love soccer. I played soccer as a teenager. It is the one sport that I really enjoy watching, and I'm not sure what it is about it that sort of clicks with me. But this book is a really fascinating look at current politics, current geopolitics, and the way that soccer sort of works with them. Like, works with them, works in them, works sort of against them, I guess. It is his previous books. He's a very famous historian of soccer, very famous journalist of soccer, and his previous books, I guess, took what one reviewer thought was a much more sort of hopeful look at how soccer affects society. All right, I'm gonna put this back in the oven because the bread or the butter is melted. Ooh, that's hot. But I'm not ready to pour the batter just yet as I talk about the book. But this book sort of looks at the role of soccer in societies and how it's used for certain political ends. So it looks a little bit at Brexit, which plays a big role in current European politics. There's a section that looks at what role soccer plays in Iran and how it's used by certain factions as a sort of anti-Quranic force. It looks at Bolivian power structures, how Evo Morales came to power. It takes all these things and it does a deep dive into like the geopolitics of soccer. It's exhaustingly researched, and like a lot of nonfiction books I find at times, it's a little dense, and maybe in certain sections could have used a heavier handed editor. But whereas with a lot of other nonfiction books, I'm like, okay, I can just sort of skim past this section. This one, I was willing to go along for the ride, even if I wasn't feeling it for that specific section. Anyway, it's a very fascinating book. It's not one of those books where you're going to I feel like you're not going to just read it in one sitting. It's dense and you're going to sort of pour over it over a while, but you can find it in our catalog as a hard copy. I will take a break as I pour the batter from describing these books and remind everyone that Montgomery, or the William Jeanes Memorial Library. You can access our books, our catalog from our website, but also, here we go, I'm going to pour it. As I pour this, it's going to puff up a little bit on the sides, and as it cooks, I'm not going to pour all the batter because that looks like way more than enough right now. As it cooks, it's supposed to rise around the edges. We'll see how that works. We'll keep an eye on it. So it's supposed to cook somewhere between 12 and 18 minutes. I'll set it for 12 minutes, and then we'll check in on it then. Anyway, as I was saying, you can check out all these books on our catalog, which you can find at our website, jeanslibrary.org. Some of these books are available through our ebook and audiobook downloadable collection from Overdrive. You can access those in the Libby app. Yes, Mona, you can hear my dog, and I'm about to talk about a book about dogs. Hey, baby, come here. You okay? You okay? All right. Okay, so I'll skip the next book and get to the dog book. A little out of order, but while this is baking, I'll talk about... This is my wife's pick for this week, for this session of Hot Cakes and Hot Reads. Sometimes I like to ask her to recommend books. This is called Inside of a Dog: What Dogs See, Smell, and Know by Alexandra Horowitz. Passed to us by my dad, because we just adopted a dog. You hear her barking in the background there. She's a little anxious because I'm the only person in the house right now, and she hasn't been without my wife and kids for since we adopted her 4 weeks ago. Anyway, so this book, Inside of a Dog, is written by a cognitive scientist. So Horowitz is sort of writing this book to help us understand the perceptive life of a dog. So, you know, they have a very different way of being in the world than us. And she really wants to explore that. She wants to, you know, help us understand what it's like to be able to smell everything, to be able to hear the sounds of insects over or in the background of your owner talking. And she really wants to help us understand who dogs are and how to live with them without anthropomorphizing them. So, you know, we often attribute to dogs human responses, human emotions, things like that. And her argument is if we understand dogs and their perceptive lives better, we will make better owners or better companions in the house. And I do really love this book a lot. I've only read a couple of chapters because it's on my wife's bedside table right now as she reads through it. But it's going to move to my bedside table once she's done with it. She just makes a lot of really great arguments. For instance, she's skeptical of the idea that that dogs still have that same kind of pack instinct that wolves very obviously demonstrate in the wild still, because a pack is really built around this idea of cohesion where they you know, all of them are, you know, mating and sleeping together and hunting together and all that stuff. And that a domesticated dog really doesn't have those same instincts anymore, that after generations and generations of breeding, that has been sort of leveled out of them. She points out that most domesticated dogs, if left in the wild, just aren't able to hunt for themselves. And that really our attribution of a pack instinct to them is just a dog's understanding that, hey, these people are responsible for my food and these people are responsible for my shelter, and I really do want those things to continue. So it's a really good book, I guess, if you are trying to understand dogs, and I would suggest picking it up. All right, so that's Inside of a Dog. I will probably trip over mine here in a little bit because she's laying right behind me. So we are starting to puff up on the side, so it's working, everybody! Alright, I will show you that in a minute. Next book that I want to talk about is one of my favorites. I think I had to go back and try to remember if I had talked about this in one of the previous Hot Cakes and Hot Reads, because I recommend this book pretty much to everybody I know. And in fact, later in the month, I'm going to be hosting virtual book clubs, one for adults on a Thursday evening, one for all ages the same Thursday afternoon. The book is A Wizard of Earthsea. This one is actually the collection of all of the Earthsea books, so it's huge. Don't get scared away. A Wizard of Earthsea is much shorter. Ursula Le Guin is the author. Um, Also, one of my favorite science fiction and fantasy writers of all time. Um, she has this way of I don't know, looking or finding an idea that is just so ingrained in our society, one of our deepest biases, maybe that we don't even recognize is there, and then sort of pulling at the threads on that idea. Um, that's a lot of her adult fiction. This one is actually billed as a young adult novel, and so I wouldn't call this one that same idea. Um, that she's pulling on threads and trying to reveal some of our deepest biases. I'm going to take a drink because my throat's starting to get scratchy, everybody. This one is, again, it's billed as a young adult novel, although I would say, again, it's appropriate for all ages, like the best children's books. Um, it's not a flashbang sort of story like I feel like a lot of Harry Potter is. It's a more thoughtful coming of age novel. There are really meditative moments, and the main character's story arc is much more about redemption from pride than it is about like saving the world or anything like that. His struggles are much more rooted in his individual being, I guess. The story is about the wizard Sparrowhawk. He becomes the main focus of the later Earthsea novels. This is his story where he comes of power and comes of age. Um, the story starts with him as sort of this driftless, almost parentless child on an island in a village, just sort of surviving, I guess, and making mischief and things like that. He learns he has power one day when he overhears this hedge sorceress use a word of power, and then he repeats those words on a flock of goats, and all of a sudden he has this scary command of this flock of goats. Um, I don't want to go too much into the story because I love the way it unfolds, but eventually the Sparrowhawk, the character Ged in the novel, finds himself chasing a sort of shadow across the ocean, trying to resolve something that his pride has caused. One of the reasons I love this book is that her writing is just brilliant. I take a look at an individual sentence in her story and I'm like, that's pretty, but it's kind of plain. But she has this way of putting sentence after sentence after sentence and making it beautiful, just unfold in this really narrative and gorgeous way. So I'm going to recommend A Wizard of Earthsea, and I'm going to recommend all of the Earthsea novels. If you want to read and talk about it with me later in the month, it will be on, let me check my calendar again real fast, the 23rd of July. So the All Ages book club will be at 3 o'clock. Again, we'll have one at 6:30 in the evening, ostensibly for adults, although I would love anybody join me, frankly, at that point in time to talk about one of my favorite books of all time, A Wizard of Earthsea. All right, so we've got just a couple minutes left while this puffs up, and then I will show you what happens here. Because it's amazing! I can't wait till you guys see this. I would love for you to leave in the comments on this video any questions you have about books, if you're looking for recommendations, or recommend to anyone else who might be stumbling across our page looking for book recommendations, anything you're reading currently that you'd like to share with other people. Well, I find one of the best things about working in a library is, even though we see all of the books on the shelves, there's just so many that sometimes your eyes gloss over. And I love when people come in with book recommendations. Oh, my cat's here to join us too, everybody. You can hear him in the background. I love when people come in with book recommendations because sometimes, we're looking at, like I said, we're looking at those shelves. There's just too many for us to pay attention to. If someone is individually recommending a book to me, that's going to bring it out. And I'm pretty likely to pick it up at that point. But I'm out of books to talk about, so I will show you what I have set to go on these pancakes once they come out of the pan. This is one of those recipes that really benefits from, I think, something a little sweet on top. So we keep some apricot ginger jam in my house. We've got some homemade raspberry preserves right here that come from my wife's mother, who has just the most beautiful raspberry bushes in the planet up where she lives in Rhode Island. One of the things you can do is cut a lemon wedge and dust it with some powdered sugar, which I may end up doing for my boys when they have their pancakes later. Or my personal favorite this time of year is fresh peaches, which I'm going to slice up a couple right now so that they can go over this in just a couple minutes when it comes out. So these fruit toppings, along with that sort of eggy flavor and lovely custard base of the pancake here, they really just come together beautifully for a flavor that you will love. And these peaches are so ripe that you can smell them before you even cut into them. All right. So here we go. This is about to come out of the oven, everyone. And I'm going to do that now, just so you can take a look at what this looks like. So we started with, I need 2 oven mitts here. We started, you saw, with a pretty thin batter. And what comes out is this fluffy, beautiful looking pudding-ish kind of pastry that you can slice up. I think I put way too much batter in the pan that time. It's not supposed to fluff up that much over the edge, but it's still beautiful. It is not quite cooked in the middle, so I'm going to put it back in for just 1 more minute. But look for the recipe to the German pancakes that we made today in the comments here on our Facebook event or on our website, jeanslibrary.org. I will also post the book titles and links to those book titles to our catalog, and if any of them are available in our downloadable ebook and audiobook collection, I'll post links there also, so that if any of these books sounded amazing to you, I hope one of them did, you can go put a hold on that book in our catalog. Thank you, as always, everyone, for sticking around and watching me make some tasty pastries and talk about books. Thanks again, as always, to John Lewis for his recommendation for this program. It has been one of the most fun things about quarantine. And now that we're back, I can't say quarantine, it's just nice to be here and get to talk to everybody on Facebook. I don't think any of my coworkers got to see this because now we have masks on every time we're in the building, but it is no longer a journal of the length of Adam's beard. This week I took scissors to it and hacked it back a good inch or 2 because it was getting a little out of control, everyone. All right. So, thank you. Enjoy German pancakes. Enjoy good books. I will see you again in 2 weeks.